at some point, there was some doctor that had zero experience doing real operations, and somebody had to give him that chance to do it once, right? So everybody in their career that has done something and is world class started in the same exact position that you did. Welcome to Life of a CISO. I'm Dr. Eric Cole, your host, and we'll be taking you on a journey each week on what it takes to be a CISO and what are solutions that you can implement today if you are currently a Chief Information Security Officer or if you want to be one in the future. This is Life of a CISO. Welcome to one of my favorite times of the week, and I hope it's your favorite time of the week, where yours truly, Dr. Eric Cole, brings you Life of a CISO, where we talk about my favorite topic, being a Chief Information Security Officer. I always love getting questions from the audience, so we actually have two that I want to kick off this episode with. And the first one is, we'll go ahead and look at that question. It says, Dr. Cole, I've heard you talk about assessing the impact to the business multiple times. It sounds like primarily from a financial perspective. I would love to hear you go deeper on assessing impact on this podcast of other things like objectives, obligations, and things like that. So great question, but a couple of aspects. First, anything you come up with in terms of assessing risk to the organization wants to make sure that it's not overly complicated. Don't overthink it, right? I always go in, and one of the things I talk about is that cybersecurity needs to have a metric. And one of the metrics that I like using is attempted attacks, because it's simple, it's easy, and it's something that's accessible to you. And I always get people that push back and go, but Eric, isn't it better to go in and utilize the amount of breaches and the length of time they're in versus the amount of damage correlated with the impact to the organization? And I say, can you do that? And they're like, well, no. I'm like, well, when do you think you'll have all that data to be able to do that calculation and present it accurately to the executives? And they're like, well, I don't know. Well, tell you what, my metric is simple and easy and you can do it today. So why don't you use mine until you figure yours out, right? And that's the thing. It's not meant as a negative, but in cybersecurity, we're really smart people. You're really smart, brilliant people and tend to be over analytical. And that can be good, but that can backfire on you. If you start making things so complicated or start looking for perfection, going, oh, well, Eric, I can't possibly use your metric because it has these issues and flaws with it. I just can't possibly use it. I get that all the time. I need to wait for my metric. So essentially, you're going to do nothing for 2 or 3 years. How's that going to work out for you? All right, here's what you have to remember. Better or worse. My metric attempted attacks, you might not love it. It might not be perfect. I'll be honest with you. Come over here. I'll tell you a secret. Shh. I don't love it either, but that's the best we got, right? So it's better than nothing. What we're doing, nothing versus this. So to me, when it comes to these risk assessment models, I like to keep them simple. Now, if you're doing it correctly, there's two things. First, everything from a business standpoint is ultimately going to come down to the monetary impact of the business. Even nonprofits make money, and even government organizations have to justify their budget. So ultimately, everything in business is going to come down to money. So when we look at things like reputation, guess what? Why are we concerned about reputational impact? Because it will hurt the brand, it will hurt customers, it will hurt referrals, which ultimately hurts the revenue for the company or the dollars. So all of these other things that we're talking about when you're talking about objectives and obligations and mission and all of those things are ultimately important, because the mission, objectives, and reputation of the organization is ultimately what's going to allow your business to be as profitable as possible. So ultimately, all risk is calculated with dollars, because guess what? That's the ultimate language of business. If you go in to your CEO or executives and you say, well, there's risk that could hurt our objective, or it could hurt our mission, or it could hurt our reputation. Ultimately, what they want to know is what is going to be that impact in dollars and cents. If I go in and say, oh, we're going to impact our mission, and it's going to be really, really bad. Well, what does really bad mean? Well, it's going to cause us to lose $20 million. Okay. Notice it ultimately comes down to dollars and cents. So that's one thing to remember as being a world-class chief information security officer, that the language you speak, you're a translator. You speak technical for the security team, and you speak business for the executive team. Your primary role is to translate between those, and ultimately the language of business is going to come down to dollars. So yes, you should take into account all of those factors, but ultimately all of those factors are going to roll back in to my 4 things that you always present to executives. What is the risk? Likelihood of occurring, cost if it occurs, and cost to fix it. If you stick with that magic quadrant, those 4 things, it's always going to serve you well. So the language of business is money, and all those things tie into it. So those other things are indirectly related. And secondly, as I said, you definitely want to keep them in mind. Just make sure you're not making it overly complicated to the point where you can't go in and actually present data. I'm a big fan of starting simple. I know it's not perfect, but it's better than what you're doing today, and then do incremental improvements. That's the name of the game that ultimately works. Now, this second question is really, really interesting because it's actually highlighting the concern that I've had, which is there's a lot of world-class people that are technically focused, but there's a small percent that actually also have that business mindset and speak that language. So here's the question. Eric, I think times have changed about your statement, not a lot of people with the experience part, and they're saying, referring to CISOs. There are thousands upon thousands of security professionals out there at the senior manager and director levels who are looking to step up into the CISO role. So I'll just pause there for a second. Yes, there are thousands upon thousands of people with titles that are doing technical work, right? Many of those people, and this is my whole point, many of those people that have senior manager or director or vice president titles. Now remember, most, not all. So I know a few of you, I have some good friends of mine that are world-class CISOs. And to be honest with you, I don't know why they're listening to my show now. They tell me they learn stuff, right? But they're world-class, right? I'm not referring to those. So there are some world-class CISOs out there. And yes, there are some people that have a cybersecurity director title that are actually super strategic. And there are some people that have cybersecurity manager titles that are super strategic. But I would say most of them that I've run across are not. Just because you have a title, and this is my exact point, just because you have a title that insinuates leadership and management doesn't mean you're focused on strategy. You are very technical focused. Many, not all, right, of those people are. So that's my exact point. Yes, there's a lot of people with the title, but not a lot of people that actually have that strategic mindset. If we take most of those folks that have those senior titles and I put them in with the CEO and I say, talk business, they probably wouldn't last 5 minutes. Or let me do the test right now. If I take most of them and I say, what is your name? Where do you live? What is your age? Where do you work? What's the current revenue of your company for this year? What's revenue for last year? What's the profit margins? What is business are you really in? How do you differentiate from the competition? Would you be able to answer those? Most of the people with those titles can't answer those questions. And that's the point I'm trying to make. We need more on that strategic side of the house. Just want to take a quick break. I hope you're enjoying the show. I have this free webinar that I would love for you to check out if you want to become a world-class CISO. And then this next part of the question is really important. They then say your analogy is spot on. Can you fly the plane? And just like in aviation, where everything is about how many hours do you have flying that plane already? So is it for the CISO role? If a person doesn't have at least 15 years of experience at InfoSec, including progressive roles from an analyst and engineer, you really don't have a shot at becoming a CISO. Why would you? Who would trust you? I love you. Whoever wrote this, I love you. Remember, with love in my heart. Right? That is not correct. Remember, a world-class CISO has world-class security engineers that report to them. You don't need to be a world-class security engineer to be a CISO. And here's the big problem. If you do something for 12 to 15 years, you are really, really good at it. You are so good at it that it's ingrained in what you do, and it is habits that are very difficult, if impossible, to break. So if you've been doing security analysts and engineers for 12 to 15 years, that's what you know, that's what you love, that's your comfort zone. So most, not all, but most people that have security engineers for 12, 15 years make terrible CISOs because they go in and continue to be a world-class security engineer. Now, is it possible for you to break the habit? Is it possible for you to become strategic and trust your team and not yourself as the world-class expert? Yes, but it's really, really difficult to do. To be a world-class CISO, you need to speak business, but you don't need to be the business expert. That's the CEO. That's the COO. They're the business experts. You just need to speak the language to translate cyber into business terms. And if you're a CISO, you need to speak security technical language, but you're not the expert. You need to rely on your team to do that. You're going to have a world-class team around you. So typically the best CISOs out there are the ones that have 3 to 5 years experience in security. They have some exposure to business, and they're comfortable in both. They haven't built bad habits in either, and they can very flexibly go back and forth between those two roles. So I'll give you a perfect example. CISO test. You have the CISO title. You get a text message that one of your servers have been compromised. One of your servers has been broken into, and critical data is being exfiltrated out of the organization. What do you do? What do you do? Now, if you were a world-class security engineer for 15 years, and you've done incident response, and you've done engineering, and you probably know how to do that better than people on your team that only have 6 or 7 years experience, what are you going to do? You're going to run into the data center because you know you have more experience than your team. And you're going to start working on the service, and you're going to start analyzing, and you're going to start looking at what's going on. And what you just demonstrated is that you're still a world-class security engineer. That is not a CISO because you are not communicating with the executives, you are not managing the strategy, and you just alienated your team. You basically just told your team you're smarter than them and pushed them out of the way. And that's the problem I see, more likely than not, that taking somebody who's done security for 12 to 15 years and switching them over. Now, it can be done. I've done it. And I was a technical security professional, world-class penetration testing, and all those things for almost 20 years before I switched. So it can be done. I'm not saying it can, and some people have, but it's much, much harder for those folks to do that because you have to break those habits. A world-class CISO, when you go in and get the call that a server's been compromised, you gather your team and you trust your team. You task your team to go in and evaluate what's going on and tell them to give you an update in 45 minutes. You then call the executives, give them a brief, and tell them you'll update them in 60 minutes. And you manage the overall strategy and situation, working with legal, PR, and all the other executives across the organization. So once again, it's a great question that you ask, but it's a little tricky there. Yes, there's a lot of people that have titles, but that doesn't mean they're not still doing technical work. And as I said, yes, you could be world class. But let me ask you this. If I have a company and I have somebody who's been doing security for 12 to 15 years and they are world class, they are top of their game. They can handle incidents like nobody's matter. They can do analysis of threats quicker and faster than anybody else. Why would I want to take them out of that position? Why would I want to go in? And remember, this is hard for me to say because I'm a Giants fan, but I got a lot of respect from this year. Why would you take Tom Brady out of quarterback and put him as a coach? That's crazy. He's world-class quarterback. You keep him as a quarterback, right? So if you have a world-class person who has 15 years experience and knows everything technical in and out, why would I take them out of that role? Why would I go in and put them in a coaching role when they are world-class in that position? So my question to you is, why would people do that? Right now, there's a few folks that want to change for career-wise, but you can make a ton of money being a world-class security engineer. So in most cases, those people, because that's what they know and do, they don't make good CISOs. And my question is, why would you want to give them the CISO title? Give them world-class security guru and pay them a ton of money because they're worth every single penny. Right? So we got to be real careful here that a chief information security officer and the person who wrote the question seems like you're still focused. It's a technical level position, and it's not. It's not a technical. You need to have some knowledge, but you're not the expert. You're going to have a team that's expert, and you need to have some knowledge in business, but you're not the expert. That's the CEO, COO. So you're a translator between those two areas. And I actually just got off of a podcast where talking about what it takes to be a world-class CISO. And it was actually for women in technology. And I know people always laugh when they see me, because clearly I'm a man, right, doing women in technology, but two reasons for that. One is I have a son, but I have two daughters, and my youngest daughter just recently told me she wants to get into cybersecurity. So I think that's awesome. Second, and I believe this, one of the things I loved about cybersecurity, and I still love, is the diversity of different people. I don't want to work around a bunch of Erics. I would drive myself crazy. Right? I question those that are around me all the time because I'm nuts. Right? I'm annoying. Right? I tell people that. I'm like, man, the fact that I don't piss you off is shocking. Right? I'd annoy the heck out of me. If I had to work with 10 Erics, oh man, that'd be crazy. Right? I like diversity. I want people that think and act differently than me. I want people that have a different mindset because to me, that's what makes security such an amazing field. You have people from all different backgrounds, all different interests, all different makeups, and we're all bringing a different perspective, and that's what makes it so powerful. So the question they asked me was, what is the most important skill to be a world-class CISO? And I think the answer shocked them, but then they totally agreed with me. Mindset. You have to believe that you are a world-class CISO. Now notice what I said. You are, present tense, a world-class CISO. But Eric, I have never had a CISO role. I don't care. There's a first time for everything. Do you realize every pilot at some point in their career had no experience and somebody hired them? Do you realize every pilot at some point in their career had to fly the plane for the very first time? Every doctor had to perform their first operation. At some point, there was some doctor that had zero experience doing real operations, and somebody had to give him that chance to do it once, right? So everybody in their career that has done something and is world-class started in the same exact position that you did. But here's the problem. If you continually say, I will be a world-class security engineer, or some point in the future, I'm going to be, your mind is a goal-achieving machine. And if you keep saying in the future, It's going to say, okay, in the future. But if you say, I am a world-class Chief Information Security Officer today, then your mind believes it. And guess what? You start acting like it. You start behaving like it, and you will get that job. It might be 10 interviews. It might be 100 interviews. It might be 1,000 interviews. But you will get that job. But here's the problem. I coach people all the time, and it doesn't matter the background, and I hear the same thing. Eric, nobody's going to hire me as a world-class CISO. I don't have any experience in this area. I don't know what I'm doing. Nobody's going to trust me. Do you realize none of those statements are factual? I am wearing a gray jacket right now today. That's a factual statement. It's factual. I'm wearing it. You could prove it. Saying that no one will hire you is not a factual statement. That's something you created out of fear, lack of confidence, or other reasons, but that is not factual. However, if you keep saying it and you keep believing it, you will make it factual. And that's the problem. So you need to stop that, right? Stop that right now. Every day you go in and you say, I am a world-class Chief Information Security Officer, present tense. And I am a world-class Chief Information Security Officer. Now, a couple of things. First, you need to make sure that you can show prospective hires, which means you got to get the interview. What is the barrier to getting an interview? A resume. So I see this all the time when people go, Eric, I submit for CISO positions and my resume is way too technical. Well, yeah, it's a technical resume. So why do you think you would get a strategic position when you're presenting them a technical, tactical resume? Of course they won't give you the job. Of course they won't give you the interview. You need a strategic resume. I have 3 resumes. They're all quite different, but they're all accurate and they're all the same person. You're just highlighting different things. Now, this is one of my other favorite. Eric, I have no management and leadership experience. I have 0. Therefore, even if I update my resume, there's nothing on there to put. Okay, let me help you out here. My son is 21 years old, and he has management and leadership experience. He's a drummer. His freshman year, he was on the drum line, and because he was a freshman, he was responsible for all of the equipment and managing and organizing the drum room. That's management experience. For his class projects, on one of his class projects, he was the team lead. And he had to lead a team of 5 people to deliver the project. That's leadership. If my 21-year-old son who's still in college has management and leadership experience, I guarantee that you have it. You're just not looking in the right spot. Now, just so we're clear here, I'm not telling you to lie or fib. I'm just telling you to tell the whole truth. Because I can almost guarantee you saying you have 0 leadership experience is a lie. You've never led a team. You've never had anyone work for you. You've never been in charge of a project. And I love when I start coaching people like, oh, I've done that. Create a new resume. But Eric, I don't have the title. Here's what you do. You put your company name, and underneath you put cybersecurity professional. Don't put senior network engineer or SOC analyst. Just put cybersecurity professional. That's not lying. It's true. And then focus on everything you've done that's management and leadership focused. And create a new resume that aligns with what they want. The resume is to get you the interview. No one's going to hire you on the resume. It's merely to get past the screening process. So once again, find the truth. Everyone goes, but Eric, saying I have management is not truthful. No, it actually is the truth. Saying you have no management, that's the lie. So switch it. You absolutely do. Put it down, get it correct. Then, once you get the interview, Go in and within the first 3 minutes, take control. I have my new book, Cyber Crisis, coming out. I'm doing a lot of media and TV interviews. When you are on TV, you typically have 2 to 3 minutes. Honestly, you have 30 seconds. Most of the time, if you don't impress the host within the first 30 or 40 minutes, they'll cut your interview short. If you impress them, they'll actually extend it. So you have 30 minutes to impress them and 3 minutes to get your point across. So I'm going into that interview. I know the general topic. I don't know the questions. And I know the 3 points I'm going to make. So I have an interview tomorrow. One of my key points. It doesn't matter who you are, what you do, or how much money you have. You are a target, and cybersecurity is your responsibility. Boom. So I'm going to fit that in. It doesn't matter the questions. I'm going to fit that in because I know the sound bites I want to get across. Going into an interview, you need to control the first 30 minutes. Sorry, the first 30 seconds and 3 minutes. Yeah, 30 minutes is way too long, right? You got to control those first soundbite, 3 minutes. So whatever they say in the beginning, hey, Eric, can you give us a little bit about your background? Absolutely. But I just want to let you know that I'm very excited about working for this company because I noticed that last year you made over $300 million with a 40% profit margin. And I know that that's actually up 30% from the previous year. But I also know that this is a very competitive market space and you have 3 new competitors. And this year your numbers are slightly lower than your projections. I believe that cybersecurity is a business enabler. And I believe working at your company, I can show you how to use cybersecurity to differentiate your company, beat out the competition, and actually have year-over-year growth by 30% and maintain your margins. Let me ask you a question. Who's not going to hire you? And by the way, I work with executives, and I ask them what they want to hear. And I've gone up to over 30 different CEOs, and I say if somebody, now here's the trick, that has to be accurate. You have to have done your homework, and those numbers need to be correct, right? You need to check all of the filings, if they're a publicly traded company and all that stuff. It needs to be accurate. But if it is, and I give that little spiel I just gave you to over 30 CEOs, 90% of them said that person is definitely coming back for another interview. They're going to be shortlisted. And if they actually have that expertise in business that they're claiming and they can back it up with a few questions, we're hiring them. So that's how you own the interview. Having degrees doesn't get you a job. I will tell you, I know people that have a ton of degrees, ton of certifications, but they go into an interview and they start going, well, yes, let me tell you about my career. I'm an expert at redesigning networks to integrate security into the network. I can go in and reduce false positives. They don't care about that. If I'm a CEO running a business, I could care less about the network. That's you guys handle that. I just know it's going to work. They want to know about growing, expanding the business, and can you speak their language? So the most important skill is don't get more degrees. Now, if you want to, you can. I personally had a goal to be the first person in my family that had a PhD. Long story there, but that was a goal near and dear to my heart. And I achieved it. Whether it's helped me or hurt me in my career, I'd say it's probably neutral. But it was a goal that I had. So if you have a goal and you want to do that, go for it. But don't sit there and postpone your destiny saying, oh, I'm going to go and get 3 more certs, so in 3 years I'll be a CISO. Or I'm going to go get a master's degree. And then I'll be no, you're just postponing. You're just making excuses. Embrace it. So here's the CISO challenge. You ready? CISO challenge. 45-day CISO challenge. First, every day you read for a minimum of 60 minutes. Every single day. And here's the 3 books. The first book I want you to read is Blue Ocean Strategy. Depending on how fast you read, that book will take you 7 to 8 hours to read. Then I want you to read Zeros and Ones by Peter Thiel, Thiel, and that's going to take you about 3 to 4 hours. It's a really quick read. So now you're at about 12 hours, 15 hours. Then I want you to read Principles by Ray Dalio. Now that's thick. That might take you another 20. That could take you another 20 hours. So it's still under the 45 hours, but I want you to read those 3 books in 45 days. Now, if you're falling behind, you might have to do 90 minutes, but read 60 minutes a day and read those 3 books. You're going to have business mindset there. Then every single day, I want you to reach out to 3 CISOs on LinkedIn and just DM them and say, hey, I've been following you and I love how you focus, and show that you've researched and understand what they've done, and ask them a simple question. I was wondering, I want to be a CISO, and what's the one piece of advice you would have for me? I know you're super busy, but I was wondering if you would have 20 minutes to jump on a phone call. And by the way, I would love to get skills. So if there's anything you'd like me to work on or help you out with, I'd be happy to do it, no charge. Now, after 45 days, that's 135 people, if my math is correct, right, that you've reached out to. Is it possible that they all ignore you and say no? Yeah, but then guess what? Do it again. Until you get to a couple thousand, don't give up. There's no guarantees in life, but I'm pretty positive if you've done your research and you ask questions and you're sincere and you do follow up, you're going to get some responses. Even if you get only 10 or 12, that's still awesome. Right? That's still an awesome response. And here's what I do. You reach out to them. So every day you're going to reach out to 3 of them. Now, here's where it gets tricky. If in 7 days you didn't hear back, then you reach out to those again plus 3 new ones. So 7 days in, you might be doing 3 new ones and your 3 previous ones. And then 14 days, if you didn't hear, you might be doing 3 new, 3 from the week and 3 from the previous week. And you might be going, but Eric, isn't that going to get annoying? Let me help you out. Until they issue a restraining order, keep going. I'm joking here, but here's the thing. I will tell you, I missed direct messages a lot. I get a lot of them, I miss them. Sometimes it takes 3 or 4 for me to reply. It doesn't annoy me. It doesn't bother me. Now, if it's getting too much, they might reply back and go, listen, I appreciate your perseverance, but please stop messaging me. At that point, you then stop. But if they don't respond to you, most likely it's because they didn't see it, not because they're ignoring you. And it's okay to do that. Now, after 5 or 6 touches, you might want to go in and stop. Most people, for new customers, are 8 to 10 touches. But in this case, because you want to be respectful, I would say after 5 or 6, sort of move on. But my guess is after 5 or 6, you will probably get a response and more positive than you realize. Do that for 45 days, and 2 things will happen. You will have increased your business knowledge, you will have increased your confidence, and you will have increased your network because now you have new people to reach out to and new people to contact. So do that 45-day challenge. Let me know how it works out for you. Thank you so much for joining this episode of Life of a CISO. Cyber Crisis coming out in 5 weeks. Go right now and order your copy. It's going to sell out. It is an awesome book. Please go in. The best way you can thank me for this content, if you really enjoy the show, is purchase a copy of Cyber Crisis for yourself and purchase a copy for your boss, and we'll consider ourselves even. So once again, thank you so much, and let's continue to make cyberspace a safe place to live, work, and raise a family.